Hello everyone. Today, we'll be seeing how fast Mantine can beat Pokemon Emerald in his solo run challenge. Let's get straight into the video. In the previous video, we did Skarmory in Pokemon Emerald, and while it was slow and it got a bottom tier time, it was sort of a consistent run if you just ignore all the blackouts. In this video though, we're going to be doing Mantine in Pokemon Emerald. This was the version exclusive to Skarmory from Generation 2. If we take a look at its level up moveset, we start with Tackle and Bubble, and then throughout the levels we get Super Sonic, Bubble Beam at level 15, which is a really good move, Takedown, Agility, Wing Attack, Water Pulse, and Confuse Ray. We also have 65 HP, 40 attacks, so we're probably going to avoid using physical moves if we can, 70 defense, 80 special attack, 140 special defense, which is going to help for the electric gym, and 70 speed. Just like Skarmory, we are in the slow level up group, so there is a decent chance we're going to have to overtrain in order to be a certain level for later parts of the run. In fact, you see me actually fighting a lot of the early game trainers. You may be wondering why I'm even bothering to do this because the first gym leader is a rock type specialist. Well, here's the thing, because we are a water flying type, we are actually weak to rock type moves. So we are going to need to train to deal with Roxanne. And even then, even if we can defeat her Geodudes pretty easily, the main problem is that our defense is just quite bad. We're gonna get knocked out by Rock Tomb, plus the Nose Pass is only regular 2 times weak to water, while the Geodudes are 4 times weak. Even if we could one-shot the Geodudes with Bubble, the Nose Pass will be nowhere close. So there is a decent chance we may have to blackout train on her. But on the bright side, unlike Skarmory, the blackout training will be much, much faster. I make my way through the Petalburg Woods, and then in Rustboro City, I can go ahead into the trainer school right here and get myself the Quick Claw. We have the same base speed as Skarmory, which is kind of weird to think about. So we're going to make sure that we can always rely on a 20% chance to move first if we ever need to. Anyway, I defeat all of the trainers inside of Roxanne's gym, get to level 11, and now let's go take on the first gym leader, Roxanne. She leads off with Geodude. As expected, Bubble will one-shot, and then it'll one-shot her second Geodude as well, but look at how much damage Bubble does to Nose Pass. Yeah, that looks like it's doing like a 7th maybe, and then Rock Tomb is doing around half. So as you can see, Nose Pass is going to be an absolute obstacle to try and overcome. But on the bright side, as I've mentioned earlier, the first 2 Geodude are going to be very, very easy one-shots, so blackout training, in order to be a high enough level to defeat the Nose Pass, will be very easy. We could always use Super Sonic on her if we need to, but I hope it doesn't come to that. And fortunately it doesn't. I get to level 15 and learn Bubble Beam, and then Bubble Beam almost one-shots the Nose Pass, so yeah, we only needed to train to level 15. Way better than Skarmory so far, but there's still more to come. Remember, Watson's coming up. We're 4 times weak to electric moves, so this will be a huge problem later. I rescue Pico from the Team Aqua Grunt, return the Devon goods, and then I can make my way down to Dewford Town. I'm going to fight Brawly right away because I need all the experience possible for the next gym leader, Watson. So let's go ahead and take on Brawly and see how he goes. He leads off with his Machop. I am level 16 at this point, the same level as him, just because of my experience group. But that doesn't matter though, our flying typing makes us resist fighting type moves, so it's only a matter of time until Bubble Beam defeats his entire team and I get my second gym badge. Now with Brawly defeated, I go ahead and fight all the trainers along the Slateport Beach and in the Soda House, clear out all the trainers in the museum, and then I can head my way up to Route 110 and do the exact same thing. I also make sure to go through the Trick House in order to get myself a rare candy for later. And with all of the trainers up to this point defeated, I am level 22, so let's go take on the rival. Unlike Skarmory, Mantine is going to have a way easier time. I have Takedown now, so I can use that to take out the Wingull. See what I did there? Anyway, and then Bubble Beam can actually one-shot the Combuskin. Skarmory had to use 2 Pecks, but even though it was weak to fire, the only way for Skarmory to have died there was a crit Ember, which actually did happen in my run. Mantine, though, will just have a much easier time. Not really worth going over any further. And at this point, I'm sure you can predict this, what I'm going to say, but all of the trainers surrounding the Mauville suburbs, they all need to be completely destroyed. And after doing that, I get to level 27, and now we need to take on the 3rd gym leader, Watson. Watson leads off with his Voltorb. I outspeed, and unfortunately Bubble Beam does not one-shot, but Shockwave only does less than half because of our very good special defense. Then on the Electrike, Bubble Beam one-shots it, which is already an improvement over Skarmory. Then on the Manectric, it outspeeds, hits me with Shockwave, and I am dead. That's fine though, this is predictable. At least I can reliably knock out his first 2 Pokemon, so Blackout training will be not too bad on this guy. The main plan will probably just be keep going until I can outspeed everything, and then hopefully just win. Something I really should have thought of though was inside of Slateport, I should do the move tutor for Swagger and replace it over Supersonic, so that way I have a better confusion move. It doesn't matter though, I end up defeating Watson very quickly. So honestly, Mantine is just on the way for huge success right now. I don't think it's going to get top tier performance, but it's definitely at this point going to do way better than Skarmory did. And in fact, Skarmory struggled with the next gym leader, Flannery, but Mantine won't today. Honestly, nothing really happens from here for quite a while. A lot of the random trainers are going to be easy, including the Maxi fight on top of Mount Chimney because his camera up is 4 times weak to Bubble Beam. So why don't we go ahead and skip straight to the 4th gym leader, Flannery. With all of those trainers defeated, I enter Flannery's gym at level 33, and I now have agility on my moveset. This move really isn't going to be too useful, but right now I'm just spamming Bubble Beam. I one-shot the Numel, the Slugma, the Camerupt, and then I get to 34 for the Torkoal, and will we one-shot? Barely, but sadly not, and she ends up using Sunny Day. But that's fine though, Bubble Beam does half, and I'm pretty confident the second one will knock it out, and it does. Alright, 4 gym badges down, 4 more to go. As I make my way down to Slateport to take the boat back to Norman's gym, I forgot we need to take a look at our nature ability and hidden power. We have hidden power Electric, mainly as an answer for Wallace, because his whole team is water type. I don't know if you knew that, but yeah, I just wanted to let y'all know that. And our nature is going to be Modest, which is plus special attack minus attack. This nature just makes the most sense. And then our ability is Water Absorb. This makes us immune to water moves, and if we do get hit with a water move, our HP gets restored. This actually does come in handy at some points. Now that we've arrived in Slateport City, I enter this little mart area right here, and I'm going to be buying some vitamins. I don't end up buying Hidden Power because I can just get the free one later inside of Fortree. So for Mantine, today's vitamin of the day is 6 calcium. I need as much special attack as possible because I'm mainly going to be relying on water, ice, and hidden power electric moves. So it just makes the most sense. We don't really need Carbos because we already outspeed all of Norman's Pokemon. And speaking of Norman, we need to go get our 5th gym badge. Norman leads off with his Spinda. I end up getting level 35 for this fight, and I do end up teaching a last minute move. I now have Attract. The main reason I'm using this move is so for the slacking, I can try and stall out his turns so he can hit me for as few turns as possible. When I get to his slacking for the first time, I'm actually at very low health. I'm at 7 HP remaining, which is really not that good. I go switch to Attract right away. Hopefully he doesn't hit. He doesn't. Alright, so now I can hit for Bubble Beam doing a 3rd. He can't move, and then he hits me with Feint Attack and I am dead. Yeah, I kinda figured. On the second battle, I do end up at more HP, but I still end up dying to the same way. Now that I look at this moveset, there is no reason for me to have the Quick Claw equipped if I already outspeed his entire team. I really should have gotten some sort of berry, like maybe a person berry to deal with Teeter Dance, but I really couldn't think of another held item. I can't get the Mystic Water until after the 5th gym, so I'm just gonna have to try and get lucky. And on the third attempt at 69 HP remaining, I end up back at the slacking. Facade gets me into red health, so I really need a track to come through for me. And it does. He heals with a citrus berry, he's loafing around, and I win. Okay. That was actually more difficult than I thought it was going to be, but hey, at least we finally won. And with beating Norman, we get the TM for Facade, but that's not the true reward for beating Norman. The true reward is the HM for Surf, which I'm going to immediately teach in the place of Bubble Beam. This will be my most powerful move throughout the playthrough. And now that I have the ability to surf around the overworld, theoretically I could go down to Dewford, go into the abandoned ship, and get the TM for Ice Beam. However, I'm not going to do that right now. I really do not like getting Ice Beam when I don't have the ability to fly or have teleport, because that'll just end up creating a ton of backtracking. So I'm going to try and defeat Winona first. So honestly, why don't we go see how she goes right now? And honestly, we don't even need Ice Beam for this fight. I have Surf, Wing Attack, Attract, and Hidden Power Electric. Hidden Power Electric will just be our way to solve things. Technically, this won't work for the Tropius, we'll have to use Wing Attack on it, but still, Hidden Power Electric does neutral damage. And then on the Tropius, I misclick and go for Surf by mistake. It ends up critting, doing 2/3, and then the second Surf knocks it out. So I guess I'm just never punished for that mistake. And then Hidden Power can one-shot the Pelipper, and then I use Surf on the Skarmory, because with effective power and the Mystic Water, Surf will actually do more than Hidden Power Electric. She keeps healing with Hyper Potions, but I eventually knock it out. Then on the Altaria, I really should have Ice Beam for it, but I really just didn't want to do the backtracking. She heals up with an Oran Berry. Surf doesn't do too much, but it actually keeps her out of potion range that Oran Berry did, and I end up defeating her on the first try. Alright, now we're getting somewhere. Now that I have Fly, I will go down to Dewford Island, go inside the abandoned ship, get the scanner, get the storage key, and then I can go ahead and get the TM for Ice Beam. This will be my second most powerful move. This is going to help with a lot of fights where Surf just isn't good enough. Like for example, Drake in the Elite Four. Now at this point, from Fortree, I make it all the way to Lily Cove, defeat the rival in front of the department store to get myself Substitute. And then I get myself the TM for Rest in this house right here, because I will need Rest later, probably at the Steven fight, I'm guessing. And then with Substitute obtained, I can then take on the Team Magma and Team Aqua sections very easily, because I can just use Substitute on the Mighty Hyenas on their teams in order to prevent stuff like Sand Attack and Swagger from hitting me. And with Team Magma and Team Aqua hideouts cleared out, I can surf my way over to Moss Deep City. I'm not going to take on Tate and Liza yet because I always like to go all the way to Pacific Log to fight the 5 Gyarados fishermen and get the rare candy. Plus it gets Pacific Log Town on the map for later when I have to fly to the Sky Pillar and get to Rayquaza later. So I go ahead and just fight whatever trainers I happen to come across, and then once I obtain the rare candy at the very end of this route, I am at level 45. This should be enough to take on Tate and Liza, so why don't we go try it out. After I defeated the trainers in their gym, I end up at level 46 for this fight. I don't think it'll really make much of a difference though. What I do right away is I use Ice Beam on the Xatu, because in double battles, the base power of Surf gets split between both opponents, so I think it'd be a better idea to take down one opponent at a time. On the next turn, when I noticed the Xatu live, I decided to just switch over to using Surf. And then it actually does a decent amount of damage to both of them. And then on the next turn, the Xatu ends up getting healed to the full restore, but not the Claydol, weirdly. I'm guessing they can only use Hyper Potion on one Pokemon or the other. I guess they can't do it on both. But then now, they send out the Lunatone. I go ahead and continue to just spam Surf, Lunatone it does half, and then the Xatu obviously ends up living. Then I get hit with Psychic, the Lunatone gets its Citrus Berry used up, and the second Surf leaves it at just red health. By looking at the text, I realized the Lunatone had actually set up a light screen, so that's going to make this fight pretty dang difficult. I end up critting an Ice Beam, and then I just realized Sunny Day is up, and now I'm asleep. Yeah, this is going to kill me, isn't it? I don't wake up, and I am dead. Here's how unlucky that last fight was. I end up winning on the next attempt at near full HP. Honestly, this may have been because I decided to use 2 rare candies to get over the damage rounding threshold, so maybe that wasn't really luck, that was probably bad play. But hey, at least it only took 1 reset. The Team Magma multi-battle inside the Space Center doesn't really cause any issues, although they do end up doing some decent damage, but nothing I can't handle. Same goes for Archie inside the Seafloor Cavern, so now we can go talk to Rayquaza, get all this plot stuff out of the way, and before we can take on the League, we need to take on the 8th Gym Leader of Emerald, Juan. Juan leads off with his Love Disc. I go ahead and set up a substitute, and he used Water Pulse and it actually healed my HP even though the substitute was up. So yeah, didn't really know that. Then on the Wish Cache, I go for Surf, it almost one-shots, but then he uses Amnesia, so now Surf's only doing a third, but the second one ends up getting a crit, so it doesn't really matter in the end. Now we are on to the Celio. I use Hidden Power Electric and I almost one-shot it. Body Slam does not break my substitute. Then I can move on to his Kingdra. This thing I really don't have an answer for besides just spamming Ice Beam. I actually crit my first Ice Beam, but he ended up full restoring it anyway, so it didn't even matter in the end. And then he breaks my substitute with his own Ice Beam, but fortunately he doesn't heal it again. So then I can go ahead and use Ice Beam on the Crawdaunt. I realized I wasn't using Hidden Power, but it doesn't matter though. I end up switching to it at the last second, and Juan is defeated. Alright, now we have to go into the League. The Wally fight and all of the trainers in Victory Road end up not causing any resets, not even the slacking trainers at the very end. Although one of them does end up critting me, and I do end up having to black out, but I mean, at least I did better than Skarmory did, you know? I end up getting the remaining rare candies that I need, and then I can enter the Pokemon League. I heal at the center, buy some full restores, and now we need to go take on the final 5 trainers. Let's do this shit. The first Elite Four member is Sydney. I am level 53 for this fight. I start off by using a substitute to block Sand Attack, and then he uses Double Edge on me to break the sub. Unfortunately, the second one doesn't, so it must have been a range. Then I can Surf the Mightyena, and then Surf the Absol for a one-shot thanks to a crit. Next up is the Shiftry. I switch over to Ice Beam, and it surprisingly didn't one-shot. Okay, that was unexpected. And then once the Shiftry's defeated, next he sends out the Cacturn. I hope Ice Beam one-shots this, and it does thanks to a crit, yet again. I get to level 54, then on the Crawdaunt I switch over to Hidden Power Electric and one-shot it. Next up is the Ghost-type Elite Four member Phoebe. Phoebe leads off with her Dusclops. I go ahead and set up Substitute to block any potential Curse strats, and I do end up blocking a Confuse Ray instead. Next up is the Banette. I just continue using Surf. I one-shot the Banette thanks to a crit. Then on the Dusclops, it's going to be a 2-shot after she misses Rock Slide, but then her next one doesn't end up missing, and I end up getting her into full restore range thanks to a Citrus Berry. But then the second Surf I used on it actually crit, and I one-shot it. Then on the Banette, I crit it again with Surf. Like, what is this thing's crit luck today? And then on the Sableye, 2 Surfs are more than enough to finish it off. Next up is the Ice-type Elite Four member, Glacia. I used all of my rare candies before this fight to get to level 65, and I'm hoping Hidden Power Electric will one-shot things at this point, The Celio ends up barely living, so I have to two-shot it. And if you also noticed, I didn't use Substitute here. I've noticed using Substitute on Glacia tends to be an overall negative, because when she ends up using Hail, the damage still goes through Substitute anyway, so it's honestly entirely pointless to even use it unless you're weak to ice moves or something. And then on the Glalie, it ends up living Surf. Seriously, why is everything so close to a one-shot, but it doesn't end up one-shotting? I literally bought so many calcium. Maybe I should have been level 68 or maybe level 70 to deal with this. And this just keeps up until I eventually lose to her second Glalie. Fortunately, this only happens twice, and then on the third attempt, I'm able to defeat her Pokemon at low HP. Next up is the Dragon-type Elite Four member, Drake. With Ice Beam, this guy is going to be an absolute joke. Although his Kingdra definitely isn't a joke, but the main plan with his Kingdra will be similar to Juan's Kingdra. Just spam Ice Beam and hope for the best. I can one-shot the Shelgon, the Salamence, the Altaria, and then fourth up is the Kingdra. Ice Beam looks like it's doing half, and I almost end up two-shotting it. It lives at low health and I freeze it, but it doesn't even matter though. The full restore ends up getting rid of the freeze anyway. But hopefully after a Surf I can just use Ice Beam to finish it off, but this thing is just taking forever to go down. Unfortunately, because of the Substitute, he can't use Smokescreen on me, because that would be very bad if he had gotten some Smokescreens up. And then the Flygon is a one-shot with Ice Beam as well. Alright, we're down to just the final two fights. First up is the champion of Emerald, Wallace. He leads off with his Wailord. I have the Mystic Water equipped. I go ahead by using a Hidden Power Electric and it one-shots thanks to a crit, which is definitely welcome. Then on the Tentacruel, it does about half damage, and then the second one doesn't end up killing it. This was sort of expected because Tentacruel have very high special defense, and as you can see on that next Hidden Power, it actually did around a third. And then Sludge Bomb is starting to do some very devastating damage. Then on the Milotic, I use Hidden Power Electric, it does a third, and then Ice Beam ends up knocking me out. I've tried to teach Rest for this fight, but then I realized I can't afford to get rid of Ice Beam because I need an Ice move for Steven. But honestly, now that I think about it, maybe I should have saved up some money after the Wallace fight and just purchase another Ice Beam TM so that way I can have Rest. That probably would have made things a bit better. But on the next attempt though, thanks to some good luck with critical hits and my Substitute not breaking until near the end of the fight, I'm able to defeat Wallace and the league is defeated. However though, this is Pokemon Emerald we're talking about. The run doesn't truly end until we defeat the true champion of Hoenn, Steven Stone. So why don't we go take him on? I have a tiny moveset overhaul. I have Rest in the place of Hidden Power Electric, and I'm holding the leftovers. I am level 67 for this fight, because I really don't need a level any higher than this. I go ahead by using a Substitute to block Toxic, and then I go ahead and use Rest right away to see if I can get full HP back. But during my sleep, the Aerial Ace ends up breaking my Substitute, doing quite decent damage. I definitely wasn't expecting that. And then when I eventually wake up, Surf ended up doing half. But at this point I'm sort of worried because normally he's supposed to be spamming Spikes and Toxic. Maybe he switched over to Aerial Ace because he saw my HP was low, and that maybe if he just kept using Aerial Ace he could eventually win, but I still keep playing the fight out. On the second attempt at Steven, I am able to knock out his Skarmory, and then the Claydol does decent damage with Ancient Power, but I'm able to knock it out after the second Surf. Then on the Armaldo, I use Surf on it. It lives in red health just like everything seems to, and then Ancient Power ends up critting me, giving me a reset. Armaldo has very good attack, so I think even without the crit, the Ancient Power probably would have defeated me. I mean, what you're seeing is effectively how the whole fight's gonna go. I need to spam Surf on everything except the Cradily, because on the Cradily I can just use Ice Beam. And fortunately, I end up getting a freeze on it, and then I can defeat the Aggron right after. Then on the Metagross, Surf does a third, and then Meteor Mash breaks my substitute, and then he switched over to Shadow Ball for some reason. Then Surf ends up making it live in red health, Shadow Ball lets me survive at 51 HP, and then he uses a full restore. This isn't good, so now at this point I realized I need to go ahead and use Rest. And then I realized that Shadow Ball is doing way too much. I get a special defense drop, and because of that, I'm able to get knocked out at the last minute. Yeah, this is kind of a problem. Honestly, if Mantine was able to learn an electric type move, I would have given this thing Hidden Power Fire. But unfortunately, this isn't the world we live in. At this point, I am just getting reset after reset after reset after reset on Steven, trying to get the luck to line up. I've used all my rare candies at this point. I really can't level up further unless I want to waste my time in the wilds. 13 resets into the run though, I end up at the Metagross with full HP, and now I'm at the point where I just need to spam Surf and just hope for the best. He's down in yellow HP, Surf does not knock it out, and then he ends up using a full restore, but then my next Surf actually gets a critical hit, which allows Mantine to defeat the Metagross and clock in with a time of 2 hours, 5 minutes, and 38 seconds, with 13 resets at level 68, with a game time of 5 hours and 31 minutes. Yeah, this thing definitely got walled at Steven, but before the Steven fight, this thing only really struggled at Glacia and maybe a couple of other random spots. This Pokemon ended up doing pretty dang good. It didn't have to blackout grind at Roxanne for too long, just long enough to get Bubble Beam. And then on Watson, it only had to black out 1 or 2 times. So this thing ended up doing pretty good. Although the slow level up group definitely held it back quite some. If this thing were in the medium fast group or something, I probably could have had level 70 for Steven and just have a much easier time. If we take a look at the leaderboard though to see how this compares to every other Pokemon I've done in Emerald, we are in 9th place overall. We actually are worse than other water types like Starmie, Huntail, and Gorobus, but better than other Pokemon like Ivysaur, Camerupt, Swellow, and Skiploom. What I'm actually noticing is that water types in Hoenn tend to trend near the top. It's no coincidence that I have 4 water types all next to each other, and you notice how close Starmie and Mantine are to each other? Both of those Pokemon are in the slow level up group. However though, Huntail though, who's just barely ahead of Starmie, the only reason it's kinda slow is because it starts the game with Whirlpool, just like Gorobus did, but Gorobus had a much better moveset because it was able to get Confusion. But anyway, at least compared to Skarmory, this Pokemon is definitely way better, but in terms of aesthetics, I do prefer Skarmory. Anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed this run. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more, and be sure to follow me on my socials and support me through YouTube memberships. YouTube members get access to these runs around a couple weeks early, and get access to the patch files to all the backports we've done on streams. Anyway, next week, we're going to be tackling Pokemon X again. We're going to be playing with Dragology and Clawitzer. Those Pokemon are definitely going to surprise you with their results, and it might change some of your guys' opinion on Pokemon X and Y runs. But anyway, I will see you all then.